In this tutorial, we are going to build a simple blogging backend system. So you'll be able to create a new blog, get a blog, delete a blog, and also update a blog. So it's a simple backend system for a blogging website. But before we delve in, I would like to explain some key terms. So first is an API. An API, or Application Programmable Interface, is a set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications to communicate and interact with each other. It defines the methods and data formats to be used when requesting and exchanging information between systems. They form the foundation of a backend development. We also have a request. A request is simply a message that is sent from a client, such as a web browser or an application, to a server. So we have the get request. The get request is simple use to get all of our blocks. So that's the get request, to simply retrieve all the blocks from the server. We also have the post request. So the post request is used to post a new data, such as posting or creating a new block and saving it on our server. We also have the patch. So the patch is used to simply update an existing block. So we are going to use the patch request to update a block we already have on our database. We also have the delete request. So just as the name suggests, the delete request is used to delete our block or to simply delete data from your database. So let's start by setting up our environment first, and I'll show you how to simply perform all these requests. So this is not a full backend course. So this course is just to get you through or to show you an overview of how you can handle CRUD operations with FastAPI and MongoDB. An empty folder open over here. So I guess this is where we'll create our backend. So I'll have to create another folder. So let me create a folder. So I'll create a folder over here. Then I can choose to call it maybe Python blogging backend, something like this. And then I'll go ahead and then I'll open my folder. So once I open the folder I've just created, I'll try to open the folder with command prompt. So I'll head on top and then I'll write cmd after clicking on top to open command prompt. So now hopefully I have command prompt open. So I'll go ahead and then I'll try to install some couple of libraries. So let me start by using pip. So pip install. So I need a virtual env. So virtual env. So just type pip install and then virtual env like so. After that you press enter. So once you have it installed, you can go ahead and then you can clear everything, and then we'll start by creating our virtual environment over here. So to create our virtual environment, we simply type virtual env, so virtual env, and then we'll give space and then we'll write the name of the virtual environment. So I like to call it venv, so I like to call it like this. So venv. So after typing virtual env, then venv, just press enter. So now our virtual environment is created successfully. So if you minimize this, so don't close it, just minimize, and then you open your folder. So you find this venv folder over here. So that's your virtual environment. So what we are going to do is to simple activate it. So you need to activate the virtual environment before you can use it. To activate the virtual environment, just use period, then you use the backslash like so, then you write the name of your virtual environment, venv, then backslash again, and then type scripts, and then backslash again, then you type activate, so activate. So let me decrease it, so activate like so. So you have your period, then backspace, then venv, then backspace again, and then we'll have squares, backspace, and activate. After that, you press enter to activate it. So once you have this parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you have the name of your virtual environment, so it means your virtual environment is activated successfully. So if you're on Mac, this command will not work for you. So you have to use this command. So source source, then the name of your virtual environment, then you use the /bin and /activate. So if I have any challenges, just open Google and search for your operating system and how to activate your virtual environment. So now what we want to do is to install our dependencies. So how do we install our dependencies? So I can use pip and then I'll use install, and then we need the FastAPI, and then we also need, after the FastAPI, we need the UVCon. So we need the UVCon like so. So I need FastAPI and then I need UVCon. So I'll press enter. So we'll install some couple of dependencies later. So just install the FastAPI and the UVCon for now. So now we have all of our packages installed successfully. So go ahead and then I'll open it with VS Code. So code period. So VS Code is open to that directory. So I'll click on I trust the authors. So let me zoom it. So now I'll start by creating my folder structure. So I'll click and I'll create my config folder. And then I'll click and then I'll create another folder for my routes, my models, and then my serializers. So make sure to click so that you have everything highlighted, and then you click on the folder again, and we'll have our routes folder. Then we'll create another folder inside our root directory, and that will be for the models. So I have my config models, and then I have the routes folder. So now I left with our serializers. So we'll have another folder for serializing the data. Simple to decode the data. So now we are done with all of our folders. So we have the VN folder over here, which contains our virtual environment packages. So make sure to not open it and do anything. So these are the folders over here in our root directory. So make sure you have these folders in your project directory. So I open my VS Code, and then I click on the config folder, and then I'm creating a new file to connect to the database. So config.py file. So this file will be used to connect to our database. So open my browser, then we'll search for MongoDB. So we are using the MongoDB online. So click on the first link, which is mongodb.com. So we have the official page open. So you can click on sign in over here. So if you don't have an account, click on sign up and create an account. So I'll try to log in. So once I'm done logging in, then I'll get back to you. I'll accept the policies. So I've decided to create a new account so that I'll show you the steps you are required to create an account. So just enter the details over here. So you can just select. So make sure to fill all the details over here before clicking on the finish button. So select my programming language, so Python. So click finish. So I'll close this. So now we are creating a cluster. You can simply click on I'll deploy my database later before we create our cluster. So just close this, and then we'll have the page, the overview page open. So you can simply click on create, and then you can select the free cluster over here. So make sure to select the free cluster. So you select your provider. I like to go with the Google Cloud, or you can select the Amazon Web Service. So after that, you select the location. So try selecting the nearest location for efficiency purposes. So after that, you enter the name of your cluster. So I can have my cluster, maybe FunTechs. So just choose a meaningful name to your cluster. Then hit create. So we'll have this page open. So you must have a user created before you can connect to your database. So you can enter the username and then the password. So I can enter a username, I can have John Dio, and then I can have my password. You can hit the create button. So once you are done, we'll have the user over here. So next is adding an IP. So MongoDB will, you can click on add my current IP, and if you check, this IP address has already been added by MongoDB automatically. So you can choose to add another IP by clicking on the network access tab. Then we have our current IP over here. So I can click on add IP. For testing purposes, you can simply click allow access from anywhere. So you click confirm. So once you are deploying your database online, you can simply delete this allow access from anywhere IP, which is the 0.0.0/0. So once it's active, then we can work with our database. So click on database access, and then we'll have our user over here. You can also choose to add a new user. You can have your username and the password, and then you can select the user role. So let's scroll up and click on database. Then we close this. So click on connect to connect to your database. Then scroll, just select these drivers. After that, you select your driver, which is your programming language. So Python. Then select the version of Python you are currently using. So I'll open back my terminal. Then let me clear everything with the CLS. Then I can have Python -- version. Simply check the version of my Python. So at the time of recording this video, I'm currently using Python 3.12. So I'll select the version which is 3.12 for later. So make sure to select your version. So you can simply use this command to install the PyMongo package. So copy it, then you paste it. I can paste it and then I'll click on enter. So once you paste it, press enter to install it. So you can open back and then you click on view full code sample. So this will be used to connect to our database. So this is the connection URI. So click and copy everything, and then you can paste it over here. So we have our user John Dio. So just remove the password over here and replace it with your current password. So you replace it with the password you are using. So if you forget of your password, you can simply open back your MongoDB. Then you can close this. Then you can head over to your database access. And then you can simply add a user, or you can simply edit the user and then change the password back. So click on edit password. That's if you forget of your password. If you know the password, so I know my password, so I'll simply open back my file, and then I'll put my password in place of this password. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then PyMongo. So I'll save, I'll hit Ctrl+S to save. So always make sure to save every file once you are done with the code. Now I have the PyMongo installed successfully. So let's run the server. So I'm going to run my config file in the terminal. So I have this extension. It's called Code Runner. So if you don't have it, you can simply search for Code Runner in your extensions tab. Then select the first package. So select the first extension, which is the Code Runner, and hit on install to install it. So I already have it installed. That's why I don't have the install button over there. So I'll right click, then I'll run my code. Once I have the code runner installed, then I'll wait. So once we have you successfully connected to MongoDB, so everything is working perfectly. So I'll close this. Now let's try to create our database and our collection. So write DB, evaluate it to the client above, then dot, then the name of our database. So blogging. So this name can be any name you want. So I chose blogging because it's a blogging website. So next is our collection. So I'll have a variable blocks collection. Now evaluate it. Then I'll have my DB, the square brackets. And inside I'll write the name of my collection. So I can have maybe my blocks, or let me just make it blocks. So I have the collection created and I have my database created and connected successfully. If you need access to the course files, I'll provide a link to the course repository. Simply click on the link to download and extract the files. Additionally, if you are currently watching this on YouTube, please consider giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for more content. You can also visit us on FunTechs.netlify.app. Now let's return to the main video. So I intentionally close all the project and then I cut the server and then I close the CMD and also close my text editor. So I want us to rerun the server again. So make sure to close your VS Code and also close the command prompt where you have your server running. And let's start all over again and run our server and open our project in VS Code again. So this is our project, right? So this is the project. So I'll open the project, the whole project in VS Code. So I'll click over here. So make sure you're on the root directory where you have all your project files and click over here. Then we'll have our CMD. So I'll expand this. So now let's try to activate our virtual environments first. So we have to activate it before we try to run. So the first thing you always have to do after opening your CMD is activating your virtual environment. So v so slash we have activate slash slash I think it's slash scripts, so scripts slash activate, so slash activate and then enter. So now we have our virtual environment activated. So I can use CLS to clear everything. So now the first thing we have to do is run our server. So let me open my project in VS Code first. So open the project. So code and period, and then I'll open my project. So I have my project open over here. So I can run my server. So, but before we run the server, we have to create our entry point. So open back your file. Let me try to zoom it. So let me zoom it. So I think now it's okay. So click over your Explorer over here, and then you bring the cursor over here and click on the empty space. After that, you can create a new file. So right click and have a new Python file. So make sure the file is not in any of these folders. So make sure you have your file on your root directory. So I can call it main.py. So this will be my entry point. So I'll collapse this over here. Then I'll use from FastAPI. So I want to import the FastAPI APIs. Can I spell it? So I think it's this. So from FastAPI, so sorry, import, so have import. So from FastAPI, import FastAPI like so. After you have this, you can initialize the FastAPI you've just imported. So I can have a variable, so sorry, then I'll evaluate it through my FastAPI on top, and then I'll initialize it like so. So the next step for me is to simply save this, and then I'll open my routes file, my routes folder rather. So I'll open my routes folder, and then I'll create a new file over here. So I can call it maybe entry.py. So this will contain our entry API or our endpoint. So let me collapse this. So inside our entry.py, we are going to import, so from FastAPI, I'm going to import the API router like so. So I'll use the API router to wrap all my endpoints, and then I'll try to import it over here and use it on our main directory. So I can have maybe entry route, so entry root, so let me just call it root. Then I'll set it equals to, then I'll have my API router like so, then I'll initialize the API router. So we can then start creating our first request. So to create our first request, let me just call this maybe endpoint. Let me call it my endpoint. So endpoint. So we can come over here to have our request. So we are going to create a get request over here. So I'll use the @ sign and then I'll call the entry root. So at entry root, so like so, and then you put dot and then you put the request you want. So I'm going to have a get request. So I'll just put get like so, and then I'll put the route. So the route will be /. So / means the main route. So this will be our main route. So let me come down and then I'll have my function. So you always have a function below. So I can call the function API running. So let me call it API running. And then I'll come over here to simply return a Python dictionary. So I can have a dictionary. So let me first of all create a dictionary over here. So I can call it response. Then I'll set the response to be equals to a Python dictionary like so. Then we'll have our status. Okay. So the status will be okay. And then we'll have the message as maybe API. So API is running like so. So API is running, so I'll have to return. So let me return the rest. So I'm returning this dictionary over here. So now if I save and then I come to my main.py, so here I'll have to import this entry root over here. So I'll have to import it over here. So to import it, I'll simply use from, then the name of the folder. So this is the name of my folder, rouse. So from rouse, so you write the name of your folder from rouse, then you put period and the name of the file you want to import from. So it's entry. So entry like so. Then you write import. So import. Then I'm importing what? The entry root. So this is the entry root over here. So I'm importing the entry root like so. So I can come down and then I'll have app dot include router to include this route over here, to include it over here. So include router, then I'll wrap my entry root over here. So entry root. So sorry. Entry underscore root. So this is all. So now you can save. So make sure you have your files saved. After saving your files, just open your command prompt where you have your virtual environment activated. Then you can clear everything. Then I can then type uvcon. I spell uvcon. So uvcon, then main, then column, then app, and then I can use the reload flag also. Then I'll press enter. So we'll have our server run, our local server running on this URL over here. So I can simply copy this URL and paste it on my browser. Or for my case, I can simply hold Control and then I'll click to open it. So I have it running. So now you have API is running. So if we put /, so this is the same as putting /. So if I put /, it's the same thing as leaving the /. So you can also use /docs. So put /docs to navigate to their documentation. So this will show all your APIs over here, or your endpoints rather. So it will display all the endpoints you have over here. So you can click on this tryout. So this is our first endpoint. It's a get request. And then the name of what? The function is API running. So if I click over here and then I execute, we'll have the same Python dictionary returned to us. So this is how to quickly create your first GET request with FastAPI. Let's try to post a new block to our database. So we'll first of all have to create our model. So I head over to the model tab, then I'll click over here, and then I'll click over here to create a new file. Then we can call it block. So I can call it block.py. So I have the file created and open over here. So let me go ahead and remove this tab. So first we'll have to import our base model from Pydantic. So just write from Pydantic, then import, then base model. So that's what we need for now. So we can have a new class over here. So class, then we write the name of the model. So I can call it block models. So I think let me just call it block model. So block model, then you open parentheses, then you pass your base model. After that, put a column, then you come down to have your attributes. So the attributes of the class. So we can have the title, and then you specify the data type of the attribute. The title should be a string. Then we can have our subtitle, so subtitle, and the subtitle should also be a string. We can also have the content of our block, so I can have content, and the content should be a string, and then we can have the author, and the author should be a string. And then we'll have tags, so tags, and then the tags will be a list, so we'll pass a list of tags. So I think this is okay for now. So I think we are going to pass date, but not here. So the date will be assigned automatically. So that's why we are not passing the date over here. So let me open back my Explorer tab, and then I'll head over to my routes. So I have opened the routes folder. So I'll click over here to create a new file. So we can have block again. So block.py inside our routes folder. Then I'll press enter. So we have two block.py files, but this is for our model and this over here is for our route. So I'll open the one in the routes folder, and let me close the tab. So let's import the API router. So from FastAPI import API. So can I spell API router? So after that, you initialize your API router like we did before. So I can have, maybe let me just call it block root. So block root. So this is how I like to name my variable to initialize the API router. I simply look at the name of the file, then I write the name of the file, then I put an underscore, then I attach root. So that's why we have the entry file, and then over here we have entry underscore root. So you evaluate it to the API router, and then you put parentheses to initialize it, right? So let me collapse this. So now we can start creating our requests. So post request. So post request simple means posting a new data to our database. So to create a request, you first of all grab your variable over here. So it's block post. So sorry, it's block root. So you put the @ sign, then the name of the variable. So block root, then you put period, then the name of the request, and then the method. So the method is post. So just write post. Then you open parentheses, and then you pass your route over here. So the route here, so I can choose to call it slash maybe new slash block. So I think this is okay. So if the user visit your application, so we'll have a URL to your application. So if we come over here, this is the URL. So this is the URL. So if the user wants to post a data, so the user will have to pass something like maybe new slash block, like so. So let me check to see. So new slash block. So if you are sending the API to the user to post a data, so this is how you send the API, new slash block. So let me remove this, and then we'll have this back. So I'll come to have my function over here. So I'll create the function, so def, then I can call it maybe new block. So that's the name of my function. And I open parentheses, and then I pass an argument. So we are grabbing an argument over here. So I can choose to call it doc, or you can call it data, or anything. So let me pass doc. So this argument will simply hold the values of the data the user is trying to post. So I'll pass the base model. So let me import it first. So from then the name of my file. So in the name of my folder, so models, then I'll put period, then the name of my file. So it's block. Then import the blocks model. So I think it's blocks model, right? So block model. So I think it's block model. So I'm importing the block model from my models over here. So this is the block model. Let me open back and then let me collapse this. And then I'll come over here to pass the block model. So pass the block model like so. So this simple means that the data the user is trying to post should match with our blocks model. So it should be the same as the block model. So it will have, so the data the user is trying to post should have the attributes similar to our blocks model. So I'll put my column, then I'll come inside the function and I'll grab the doc. So let me create another variable. I can just call it doc again. Then I'll grab my doc over here and then I'll try to convert it to a dictionary. So to convert it to a dictionary, so first of all, write your dic and then you open parentheses, then you put the doc over here. So this will convert the data into a Python dictionary. So I can simply return the data back and then let me save, and then I'll open back and then I'll try to refresh. So let me head over to my docs, then I'll refresh. But make sure you have your server running. So make sure you have the server running. So if you come, you not see anything over here. So we don't have the route over here. So the problem is from our main.py file because we didn't import that route. So we have to import it. So to import it, we can use the from, then the name of our folder, which is the routes folder, so routes, then period, then the name of the file, so block, then import, and then I'm trying to import the variable I've initialized over here, which is the block underscore root. So import block underscore root. So I can come to now include it in my router by using the app .include router. So include router, and then I open and then I pass the block underscore root. So block underscore. So can I spell block underscore root? So block underscore root. So now if I save, then I open, then I refresh, hopefully we'll have our route shown. So now if you check, we have the new block route shown. So if you click to open the tab and then you scroll down, you have your attributes, you have the title, subtitle, content, author, and then we have the tags. So just click on the try it out and then try. So change the title to something else. So I can just call it new post and then come down and then click on execute. If you scroll down, you find that the data you've just sent over here has been returned to you. So this is the data. So now instead of returning the data to the user, we want to post it in our database. So open back and then we'll go to our routes file and then let me close the main.py file. So now we don't need it. So let's import our blocks collection from our config file. If you open our config file, we'll have the blocks collection over here. So we want to import it. Just open back over here, then use the from, then the name of the folder, which is config. So from config, then you put period, then the name of the file is the same as the folder config. Import, and the name of our collection, which is blocks underscore collection. So blocks underscore collection. So now we can come down and then let's try to automatically assign a date to each block. So we want to assign the date to the block automatically. So to do so, we need to import the date time from our Python library. So datetime. So just write import datetime and save. So we can come over here to have another variable which I can call current date. Then I'll evaluate it datetime. So datetime, then you use period, and then you write date, and then you use period again, then you write today. So today to grab today's date. So this was simple. Return today's date and we'll store it on this variable. So now we can grab our doc dictionary, and then we can use the square brackets to add a new key or a new attribute to the dictionary. So the attribute we want to add is the date attribute. So we can evaluate it to our current date. So current underscore date. So now hopefully if I try to return my doc and then I save this and then I open back and then let me execute. Now if you come, okay, we have now, so let me check to see if everything is working correctly. So everything is working correctly. So just refresh. So if we refresh, hopefully I think it will work. So refresh it first. So now let's click on try it out again and then let's execute. So now hopefully if you come, you have today's date attached to your dictionary. So now let's try to post the data to our database. So to post the data, let me clear this. We use the name of the collection. So first you write the name of the collection, which is the blocks collection. So blocks collection. Then you put period. Then you use the insert underscore one to insert one data. So we are inserting a single document. So that's why we are using the insert underscore one. Then you pass the data you want to send. So this is the data doc. So this was simple post the data to our database. So now what we want to do is to get the ID of the data once it's posted. But if you check our model over here, we didn't pass any ID. So let me check. So there is no ID here. But MongoDB will automatically assign an ID to each document. So if you try to post a document, MongoDB will assign an ID automatically to that document. So we want to get the ID back. So first, let's change this current date. So let me try to convert it to a string first. So convert it to a string. So I think this is okay now. So now what we want to do is assign a variable to this. So to the request over here. So to assign a variable, just write the name of the variable. So I can just write res, which simple means response. So I'll just assign res to this over here. So now if I come, this res over here have a method called the inserted underscore ID. So how do I get the inserted underscore ID? I can have a variable which I can choose to call doc ID, and I can evaluate it to the res. Then I'll use period. Then I'll call the inserted underscore ID to grab the ID of the document I've just inserted. So now what I want to do is to simply return a Python dictionary, and inside this dictionary we'll have our first attribute, which is the status, and then the status will be okay. So okay. And then we'll have our message, so message, and the message will be maybe blog posted successfully. So blog posted success, let's press successfully, and then we'll have the ID of the blog we've just posted, so underscore ID, and the ID will be stored over here. So let's try to convert it to a string before we send it. So to do so, just grab everything over here and write str, and inside the parentheses you paste it. So now I will have my doc underscore ID. So now if I save and then I open back and then I refresh, so now let's click on try out again, and let me just click on execute. For now we want to test and see if everything is working perfectly. So now if we check, we have blog posted successfully and we have the ID returned to us. So open back in MongoDB and click on database over here. So now if you check, we'll have the browse collection. So click on the browse collections, and then we'll have your collection over here. So this is the database blogging, and this is the collection blocks. So if you click on the blocks, you find the data you've just posted. So this is the data I've just posted. So I can choose to delete it. So just delete the data. So click on delete to delete it. So once it's deleted, open back, and then we'll try to post another block. So this time we'll have a meaningful title. So I can call this maybe learn. So let me just call it Python. And then I'll have a subtitle. So Python course for beginners. And then I'll have the content of my blog. So I can just write this is the content of my blog over here. So I'll have the author over here. So the author will be FunTechs. Then I'll have my tags. So the first tag I can have Python. Then I'll use comma. Then I'll have the second tag, which is maybe programming. So programming. And then I'll have maybe PyMongo. And then I'll have another tag, maybe database. And then I'll click on execute. So once you click on execute, we'll have block posted successfully. So let's post another block. So I can have JS for JavaScript, and then I can choose to change this to JS again, and then I'll have JS, and then let me post. So execute, we'll have the block posted again. So if you open your database and then you head over to your collections and then click on refresh. So once you click on refresh and then you scroll down, we'll have, so now if you scroll, this is the first data we've posted, and this over here is the second data we've just posted. So this is how to simply post a new block to our database. In the next lesson, we'll look at how to update a block. So in this lesson, we want to retrieve our blocks from our database. So just click on the Explorer tab and then head over to your serializers. So once we have the block returned, we'll have to serialize them before we can view them. So serializing simply means decoding the blocks. So the blocks are coming in the form of encoded. So we decode to get our blocks back. So click on the serializers and then you create a new serializer file over here. So I can call it block.py. So inside my serializer block.py file, let me collapse this. So first, we'll have to serialize one document. So one document. So to serialize one document, we have a function. So def, then the name of your serializer. So I can call it decode, then block. Then I open my parentheses, then I pass my argument. So after this, we map the whole function to a Python dictionary, like so. So dictionary. So inside this function, we can return a Python dictionary. So we can return a dictionary. So inside the dictionary, we can have the title of our block. So title. So sorry, can I spell title? So title. And then the title will have the doc, then you pass square brackets, then title over here. So make sure that any data you pass in your square brackets should match with your models over here. So title. And next is our subtitle. So let's not forget of our ID. So let's add the ID. So ID. And then this ID will be returned to us in the form of an object. So it will be returned encoded in the form of an object. So let's try to convert it to a string first. So str, then we open, then we pass our doc, then the square brackets, then underscore ID to grab the ID. So make sure to separate this attribute from this with a comma. So we have our title, so I can put a comma, and then I can duplicate this a couple more times, and then we can have subtitle over here. So subtitle. So I can copy my subtitle, and then I can paste it over here. So next, we can have the content, and then content. So sorry, content. So we can have our author. Can I spell author? So author. And then we can have author again. So next is our date. So date. Let me pass the date. And then I'll pass date over here. So this is how to simple serialize one document. So next is serializing a list. So this will simple serialize a Python dictionary which contains one document. But what if we want a whole blocks? So want to grab every blocks. So to grab them, it will return in a form of a Python list. So all blocks. So we'll have a serializer to serialize all blocks. So I can have my function, then I can call this decode. So sorry, decode blocks. So this over here is the code block without S, and this is the code blocks with S. So here I pass my docs. So make sure the docs have S. So you can map this to a Python list. So list like so. And here we'll return a Python list. And inside our list, we'll have the function over here, which is decode. So decode block. And then we'll try to iterate our data over here. So we'll pass an argument doc like so. And then we'll iterate by using the for loop. So for doc in docs. So this will simple grab this dictionary and try to iterate all of our blocks over here. So let's save, and then we can open back our blocks file in the routes folder. So over here. So we can come down to have a get request. So getting blocks. So let me delete one of my T. So I'll have my @ sign, and then I'll write my block root, and I'll put period, and the method will be a get request. So I'll pass the route, so it should be slash all slash blocks. So slash all slash blocks. So here we'll try to get all the blocks. So I'll have my function, which is simple all blocks. So all blocks, then my parentheses. Then I'll come over here to simple have a response variable, and I'll evaluate it to my blocks collection. So blocks collection, then I'll use the period, then I'll write find. So the find will simple return all the blocks to us. So now we have all the blocks returned and stored over here. So now what we should do is try to serialize it. So we have to import our serializers. So I'll use from in the name of my folder, which is serializers. Then I'll use period in the name of the file, which is block. Then import the decode blocks. So decode blocks. So let me also try to import my serializer for a single block. So I have the decode blocks for all the blocks, and then I have decode block for a single block. So I can come over here, and then I'll have my decoded data. So decoded data, then I'll evaluate it to my res, and then let me have my decode. So decode blocks, and then I'll pass the rest. So this rest over here will simple have the list of all the blocks. So I'll pass it over here. So rest to simple decode the data. So once I have the data decoded, so make sure it's blocks, decode blocks because we are returning all the blocks. So now if I come, I can return a Python dictionary. So I can have status, so status, then I'll set it equals to OK. So let me try to close this and let me close this. And then I'll have my data. So data, and then the data should be my decoded data. So decoded data. So now hopefully if I save and then I open and then I refresh. So if I close this tab and then I scroll, we'll have all blocks over here. So I'll expand the tab and then I'll click on tryout, then execute. So now if we scroll, hopefully we'll have all of our blocks turned to us. So this is the status and this over here is our data. So now what if we want a single block? So we want to get only this block instead of grabbing all the blocks at once. So to do so, I'll open back my file and then I'll come over here to have a new request. So I'll write at block root, then period, then it's a get request. So get, then I'll open my parentheses and then I'll have block, then I'll put slash, and then I'll put curly braces, and inside of my curly braces, I'll pass the ID of the block I want to grab. So I'll put underscore ID. So if you want to get this block over here, simple copy the ID, then you can pass it maybe like so. So we'll have, so let me create a comment. So if you pass block like so, and then you pass the ID like so, it will simple return this block to us. So let me remove this over here so I don't need it. So now if I come, I can have my function. So I can create my function, then I can call it get block. So get block. So this is all blocks and this is get block. So I'll open back and then I'll pass my ID like so. So underscore ID. So I'll specify the data type of the ID. So I'll put column, then I'll put str, meaning the ID should be in a form of a Python. So the ID should be in a form of a string. So I'll have my column and then I'll come down to simply grab the block with this ID. So to do so, I'll have to import the object ID from bsyn. So I'll write from bsyn, so from bsyn, import object ID. So sorry, object ID like so. So the O is capital and the I over here is capital. So I'll scroll down over here and then I'll have a new variable res, then I'll evaluate it to my blocks collection. So blocks collection, then I'll use dot, then find underscore one, and then I'll open my parentheses, and then I'll pass a Python dictionary over here. So the key of the dictionary will be the ID. So I'll put underscore ID like so, and then the value will be the ID the user just passed. So I'll pass the ID. So I'll have to wrap the ID in my object ID. So wrap it in the object ID. So object ID, then you open parentheses again, and inside this parentheses, we'll have the underscore ID. So this will simply find the block with the ID passed and return it to us. So we'll have the data stored on this res. So now we can decode the data like we did over here. So to decode the data, so I can have decoded block. So sorry, so decoded underscore block. Then I'll set it equals to, then I'll use my decode block, which I've imported from my serializers. So the decode block will simply decode a single block. So I'll open my parentheses, then I'll pass the rest over here. So now we'll have the decoded block stored over here. So now I can return a Python dictionary. So we can have the status of our dictionary, and the status will be OK. So OK. And then we'll have the data. So data, and the data will simply be our decoded block. So now if I save and then I open and then I refresh. So if I close this tab and then I scroll, we'll have block/ID. So I'll click on that. Then we'll have to pass the ID over here. So let's first of all click on all blocks and then I'll try it out to get all the blocks. Then I'll try to get an ID from here. So just copy any of the ID over here. Then scroll down and then click on try out. Then you paste your ID. So paste the ID and click on execute. So if you scroll down, now we'll have a single block returned to us. So you can also use the URL over here. So this is our endpoint, right? So I can put a / and then I'll have the name of the route. So let me open to get the route. So the route is /block/ID. So if I put /block/ then I'll paste my ID and then I click on enter, we'll have the data returned to us again. So this is how to simply get our blocks. So now let's try to update our block. So how do we update a single block? So to do so, we can come to have our request. So I can call this update block. So I can use my @ symbol, then my block root above. So I'll call my block root above over here. I can use period, then I can write patch. So the patch is used to create an update route. So I open, then I'll have my route. So the route can be update. So let me use lowercase. So update / then we'll pass the ID of the block we want to update. So _ID. So now I can come to have my function. So def, then I can call the function update block. And then I'll open the function and then I'll have the ID of the block I want to update. So the ID should be in a form of a string. Then we'll have our second argument, which is the document. So this will hold the data we want to use to update our block. So it should be in a form of our block model. So now I can come inside my function and then I can try to print the data back. So I can have my request, then I can evaluate it to my doc. So let me try to change the doc to a Python dictionary. So I can pass it over here. So now if I try to return, so let me return the request. So request. So now if I save, then I open and then I refresh. So if I scroll down, we'll have the update / the ID. So let me grab an ID from our blocks. So I'll head over to all /blocks and then I'll execute. So now if I scroll, then I can copy an ID from here. So now if I scroll down to my update, I can expand the tab and then I can paste the ID by clicking the tryout and then pasting my ID. So now if I click execute and then I scroll down, we'll have our Python dictionary returned to us. So what if you want to update the title? So you don't want to update the content, the author, and the tags. So you want to update only the title. So if I delete everything, leaving the title, and then I try to execute, then we are going to have problem. So to fix this problem, we'll have to open back our file, then we'll head over to our models. So inside our model, we can create another model for our update. So I can copy this model and then I can bring it down, then I can paste it. So make sure the class is in line with the class above. So now I can change this block model to update block model. So update block model. So now we'll come and then we'll put an equal sign, then we'll add none. So this will specify that we can omit any of the attributes. So we can choose to update only the title or the subtitle. So make sure to add none to all the fields. So none, and then the author should be none. Then this should be none. So now if I save and then I open back my rouse file, then I scroll up and then I'll import it from the model. So from here, I can import my update block model. So I can scroll down and then I can change this to update block model. So update block model. So now hopefully if I save and then I open back and then I try to send a request. So let me execute and then I'll scroll down. So now if I scroll down, we'll get the title over here and we'll have the subtitle, the content, the author, the tags, all of them now. So now what we want to do is to dump the subtitle, content, author, and tags. So this will simply dump all values with now. So now let me try to copy this. So click over here to copy this. So once you copy it, send it above and then paste it. So now copy the string and then instead of the null, put string and put the string over here again. So make sure they are in the quotations. So now I can choose to omit the tags and then I can omit the title. So now I can update only the subtitle, the content, and the author. So now if I execute and then I scroll down, okay, we are having an error. So the error is from this comma over here. So make sure to always remove the last comma from your dictionary. So now if I execute, hopefully we'll have everything returned. So now if we check, the title and the tag are now while we have subtitle, content, and author. So this will give us the ability to simple update any of the attributes and omit the others we don't want to update. So now if I open back, what we want to do is to simple grab all the attributes with the now values and then we'll dump them and we'll have only those with values. So now if I open back, then I come over here. So this doc, I'll use period, then I'll write dump. So sorry, then I'll put period, then model underscore dump. And then I'll open and then I'll put exclude unset. So exclude underscore unset. So select this, then set it equals to true. So this will simple dump everything with null and only return those with values. So now if I open and then I execute, so if we scroll down, now we'll have those with null values dumped and we only have those with valid values returned. So now I can choose to update the subtitle and leave the rest. So now if I scroll down, okay, we are having problem. So the problem is from the comma. So let me remove the comma and leave this like so. So let me execute and then I'll scroll and then we'll have the subtitle. So now we can grab the document with that ID and then we can update it. So to do so, we'll simply use our blocks collection. So blocks collection, then blocks underscore collection, then period, then I'll use find one and update. So find underscore one underscore n update. So find one and update. Then I'll open my parentheses and then I'll pass the ID of the document I want to update. So let me collapse this and then we'll have a Python dictionary over here. So let me open this like so and then we'll pass the dictionary. So we'll pass our ID, so underscore ID, just like the way we use to find one block like so. So here I will have the value, so I'll pass the object ID just like so, just like we did over here. So I can even copy this and then I can paste it. So let me just paste this over here. So let me close it. So find one and update, and then we are passing the ID of the document we want to update. So next is the data. So we pass the ID and then we'll pass the data. So this is the ID. So I'll put comma, and then I'll come to have my data over here. So I'll have another Python dictionary, and then we'll put a $sign, and then we'll write set. And this set will evaluate it to the data we want to update. So I'll put my request like so. So now if I save and then I come, instead of returning the request, I can return a Python dictionary. I will have the status OK. We can have the message, so message, and then I can write blog updated successfully. So now I can save this, and then I can open back, and then I'll refresh. So I'll scroll up to all blocks, then I'll click tryout, then I'll execute, then I'll grab an ID from one of our blocks. So we are grabbing the ID from our Python block. So I'll copy the ID, then I'll scroll down to my update, and then I'll click on tryout. So now I'll paste the ID over here. So what I want to do right now is update only the title. So I'll remove everything and make sure to remove the comma. So I'll remove the comma. So I can change this to Python course, and then I can try to execute. If I scroll up, we'll have block updated successfully. But how do we know that our block is updated? So I can simply grab the ID again, and now I'll head over to my block/ID to get a single block. I'll click on tryout, then I'll paste my ID, and then I'll execute. So now if we come, we'll have the title of the block change. Now it's changed to Python course, and we have the subtitle, and we have the content remain the same. So this is how to simple update a block. So let's try to delete a block from our blocks. So I'll come below, then we'll have our delete request. So delete block. So I'll use my @ symbol, then I'll call my block root, then I'll use my period, then we'll write delete. So it's a delete request, so I'll pass the route over here. So I'll pass /delete. So I'll come to have my function, so def, then I can call it delete block. I'll open my parentheses, then we'll have to pass the ID of the block we want to delete. So I'll have to put / again, then I'll pass the ID over here. So _ID. So I'll grab my _ID, and then the _ID should be in a form of a string. So now we can come inside our function, and then we'll use the blocks collection dot find one and delete. So find one and delete. Then I'll open with parentheses, and inside here we'll pass the ID of the block we want to delete. So I'll have it in the form of a dictionary, and then I'll pass the ID, and then I'll evaluate it to my object ID, so object ID, and then I'll pass the ID over here. So this will simply find one of the block with that specific ID and delete it. So we can return a simple Python dictionary. So dictionary instead of list. Inside the dictionary, we can have the status, which will be OK. And then we can have the message, so message, and the message will be block deleted successfully. So let me cancel everything, and I'll put it inside my quotation. So block deleted successfully, like so. So let me change this to column instead of a semicolon. So now I can save this, and then I can open back, and then I'll try to refresh. So now I can collapse this, and I'll scroll down to have my delete route over here. So if I expand the tab and then I'll click on tryout. So let's first of all get an ID of the block we want to delete. So I'll click on all blocks tab, then tryout, then I'll execute. Then I can scroll to grab an ID of this JS block. So now if I copy the ID from the JS block and then I scroll down, then I paste it. So now if I execute and then I scroll down, we'll have block deleted successfully. So now if I scroll up, then I click on the execute for all blocks to grab all my blocks and then I execute. Now we have one block because the other block is deleted. So this is how to simple delete a block from our database.